Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and today I'm back with another clean and simple card design, this time using a detailed background and a little distress emboss resist just on a selected area of it to highlight it. So I'm starting off with a panel of white cardstock that I've already die cut with a scalloped edge die. This one's from W+9. It's called Sunshine Layers. It's a little bit of an older die. And I'm going to use my MISTI to stamp it because my die cut panel is smaller than my background stamp. I'm using a little bit of Post-it tape to kind of hold it in place in my MISTI, since I kind of want to center it so that I know my stamped image is going to go all the way around and over the back side of the image. I'm going to heat emboss this in white, so I went ahead and ran my embossing buddy over the front of it, just the powder tool, and that'll help keep the embossing powder from sticking anywhere except on my stamped image. And I'm stamping it in embossing ink, just clear watermark ink, and I use my MISTI also partly so that I could stamp it multiple times. I stamped it 3 times in this to make sure with all of the detail on that image that I got a really good impression. And then I'm going to sprinkle white embossing powder over. I like to use a big piece of printer paper when I'm doing a large image like this, because then I can just sprinkle it on really heavy and then still get my powder back into my container. And I don't know if you can see the image on there with the white embossing powder. Now I could have used clear for this as well, but even though it doesn't show up super well in the videos, or the video of the photo, I know it's a little hard to see, but in real life, you can see all that detail of the embossing with the white on white. And it kind of just adds some shine and some shimmer and all the detail. And then when we come in and do our Distress Ink Resist, then it's going to just highlight that part that we choose to highlight. So I went ahead and set all of that with my heat gun, melted the embossing powder so it's all white and shiny and heat embossed. And then we're going to come in with a little bit of Post-it tape and our distress ink, and this is how we're going to create the detail on it. And I pulled that Post-it tape a little too short, and I want it all the way the length of this entire card front to put it on here so that I don't have to try and make a straight line with a shorter piece. So I went ahead and discarded that and started with a fresh piece. The nice thing about the scallop dies is that allowed me to use those to help me line up my tape to get it straight to make that strip that I'm going to go ahead and use to add my color on. I'm using 3 different colors of Distress Oxide ink. Tumbled Glass is my lightest color. Broken China is my mid-range color, and then I'm adding a little bit of Peacock Feathers just for depth at the bottom. I'm using a makeup blending brush. It's kind of my new favorite way to do ink blending. It just blends so smooth, and these are just off of Amazon. There's a lot of different places you can get them, but I really have been happy with these, and they aren't super expensive. They clean really well in between as well. Now look what happens when you pull that tape off. You've got just a strip there that's embossed and makes that image pop. And then I grabbed a little bit of just clean dry paper towel to wipe off any residual ink that had stuck on my white heat embossing. It just helps make that white part of the image pop really well again. Now we're going to come in and add a sentiment. This sentiment is from the January 2018 sentiment kit called So Very Grateful. And I'm heat embossing it in white on black cardstock. It's one of my favorite things to do with sentiments, especially on a clean and simple background or a little bit of distress inking. I just feel like it really makes the image pop kind of fun. And you notice I grabbed a clean brush. If you have a little bit of stray embossing powder that sticks somewhere that you don't want, grab a clean dry brush and you can just kind of come in around the image and brush a little bit of that off, which is kind of handy. Now I picked where I wanted to place that, and I'm going to add it with foam adhesive, again just to add to that depth and a little bit of image depth to it by popping it up, a little bit of dimension. And then I decided to mount that on a soft blue card base. I already had that piece trimmed down. I just scored and folded it to create a top folding card base, and I'm going to mount that directly on there. I kind of played a little. I was debating on putting a little bit of white cardstock behind it to kind of add a little thinner bit of the blue. What I finally decided to do was just trim it down a little smaller than a standard card base because I just wanted a thinner border around the edges. So I made it slightly smaller, and it had the perfect effect that I wanted. So don't be afraid to do that. Make your card a little different than just a standard size that you might think you normally want to do. There you go. There's the finished card. Thanks so much for coming by today. Have a wonderful day.